Every once in a while, you gotta just give in and build yourself a gimmicky prop, just because it's cool. Hey guys, welcome back to Blackmagic Craft. It has been quite some time since I've done a video or a project where I did anything to add to my basic generic dungeon tile system. And these tiles are essentially the foundation of this entire channel and kind of where it all started. Last week, when I was making my lava tiles, I experimented with a third option using some real LEDs, and I didn't like the attempt. I thought it was really silly and kind of dumb, and I scrapped it. But it got me thinking about actually using LED lights in tiles in a way that wasn't stupid and was actually effective. In general, I think adding lights to tiles is a pointless endeavor that doesn't really add too much to the gaming experience and certainly isn't worth it relative to the effort. However, once in a while, you just gotta do it because you can and because it's cool. And I came up with this, glowing magic arcane runes. I made some missteps along the way, of which I will gladly share with you, but in the end, I came up with something I'm pretty excited about. The idea was to have these work with my basic 3x3 tiles, so I started with a 3x3 square of 1/2" XPS foam. For the lights, I'm using one of these string lights with a very slim battery holder that you can pick up in bulk for pretty cheap on Amazon. I'll throw a link in the description if you want to grab some. To hold the lights, I broke the tile down into 3 layers. The first layer was cut at a thickness that was just slightly thicker than the battery pack. Then a very thin layer was sliced for the top. On the bottom layer, I cut out the shape of the battery pack, making sure to keep it nice and tight. The length of this cut was made a little bit long to accommodate the toggle switch and where the wire comes out. For the middle layer, this will act as an empty space to hold the LEDs. I cut out a square that would serve as a sort of frame. Then I used some hot glue to secure the battery pack and the middle layer in place. It's really important on the battery pack to leave the side with the screws accessible. This is so you can change the batteries in the future, because you will inevitably end up leaving this thing turned on overnight and the batteries will die. The tricky part with these LED wires is getting them laid out evenly and nicely. I was tempted to just leave them as a coil, but that would be too thick to fit inside the tile and it would concentrate all the light right in the middle, which I didn't want. So using low temperature hot glue and a fair bit of patience, I carefully and slowly spread the LED wire through the whole area. The trick to this was using a minimal amount of hot glue, just as little as possible so that it cooled quickly, and making use of an object or a wet finger to hold it in place while the glue cooled. This was finicky, it was annoying, but it was super important to get right for this project. With the lights in place, it was time to think about filling in that void. See, I didn't want it to be hollow. The top layer of foam is really thin, so I wanted something that would fill the area and create a solid surface for it to sit on, but while remaining translucent. The hope is that this would also diffuse the light a little bit. I first grabbed some translucent acrylic latex caulking. It applies white and dries clear, but I got worried that it wouldn't dry clear enough and I scrapped that idea and moved instead to gloss gel. This stuff also applies white and dries clear, but for some reason I trusted it more on a thick application. For the first layer, I mixed in some green ink that was a similar color to the LEDs in the hopes of creating a translucent green gel to encapsulate the lights. I only applied a thin layer of this tinted gel and filled the rest with stuff right out of the pot. I didn't want to diffuse the light too much and make it too dim, as I've made that mistake in the past. While that cures, I'd like to take a minute to tell you about the sponsor of this week's video. Archvillain Games makes some of the most stunningly sculpted models for at-home 3D printing on the market. They are incredibly dynamic and rich in detail. They also offer a lot of really large-sized models. Now, their models are available through a monthly Patreon, and the theme for November is Descent into Madness. And it's loaded with encephalid models that are perfect for a game that descends into the Underdark and a great fit for glowing arcane tiles like I'm making today. A $10 pledge unlocks all the themed monthly models for that month, gets you access to the Archvillain Discord server, and it also opens up the Sinister Vault, which is an ever-growing repository of cool bonus models. All of the models come pre-supported, so you can just drop them into your slicing software and be printing in minutes. This is invaluable. Getting access to pre-supported models is what has made me become really comfortable using this technology. What's great about Archvillain's monthly service is that they also offer another tier. At $13.99 a month, that gives you access to a 5th edition D&D module that is themed with that month and meant to be used with the models. So this is ideal for people that are signing up to get models for their RPG games. If you're looking for slick sculpts and want rule supplements to use in your game, this is a great service for you. I'll put a link in the video description so you can jump over and get your hand on their sweet models this month for yourself. And if you want to pick up some of their models from previous months, I'll put a link to where you can get those as well. Thanks Archvillain for sponsoring this video and for helping me descend into my own personal madness. While that cured, I got to work cutting out the Arcane symbol in the top layer of foam. It's probably worth drawing your design on the foam first and then cutting it out, but I personally just really enjoy freehanding this sort of thing, but do that at your own risk. The most important thing to keep in mind while doing this is that you need to avoid accidentally cutting out areas you don't mean to. You have to be really mindful of how lines intersect and interact and treat this kind of like a stencil in order to not lose any pieces. You really want to avoid cross cuts. This thin layer of foam with everything cut out is pretty delicate, so a coat of Mod Podge on all the sides and edges is really important. Now after letting it sit to cure for 24 hours, that gloss gel was not turning clear. The top layer had cured and was hard and dry, but underneath was still wet and still white. It was simply applied too thick. I was concerned that this would happen when I applied it, but for some reason, I was just being hopeful, as I often am, that it would just work out, but it didn't. It probably would have turned clear eventually, like maybe in a couple weeks, but I did not want to wait that long. So I peeled it all out, leaving just that thin original layer of tinted stuff to cure a little bit longer. And once that was fully dry, which didn't take too long, I moved to the material I should have used right from the start. 5-minute dollar store epoxy. This used to be my go-to for many things, but I keep forgetting to use it in favor of other stuff lately. I don't know why, and almost every time I end up regretting it. The stuff is so dependable and it cures in minutes, so you know what's gonna happen immediately. If I were to make one of these again in the future, I would just do this right from the start, maybe adding a few drops of ink mixed in just to tint it. To avoid getting any paint on the resin, I pre-painted the top layer. This was also a lot easier and faster as I could just overbrush everything without any worry. This could be done in any stone painting method you'd like. You could go really crazy with it and make some sort of colorful magic stone, but personally I wanted it to sort of match my basic tiles. Matching my old paint job was pretty easy as it just meant some simple gray dry brushing followed by some black and brown washes. To attach the top layer, I just used some basic PVA glue, but I spread it out really thin and let it sit for a bit so it kind of tacked up before I put it in place. My resin was nice and flat, so it was easy to push the top layer really firm and securely down onto the tile. I decided to clad the edges of my tile with some construction paper to make it more durable and hide the layer lines. This really isn't necessary as you don't actually see the sides when it's placed alongside other tiles, but I think it's a nice way to finish it off. The moment of truth is testing the lights. And thankfully, despite my blunders with the gel, the resin was a great fix. And if you were to go this route right from the start, I think you'd have a really successful build. I thought about making the top layer removable so you could swap out symbols, and you could certainly try that, but personally I prefer the durability of a piece that has itself all glued together and would rather just make more as needed. I really hope you enjoyed this video and found something useful in it. If you did, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends or in your favorite hobby groups, and drop me a comment below. All of those things really help these videos gain traction on YouTube. If you want to grab a pack of those string lights, there will be a link in the video description. But if you're needing to pick up some other crafting or hobby supplies, be sure to check out my essential equipment page on blackmagiccraft.ca. There I've curated a list explaining all the stuff that I use most, and shopping on that page helps fund the production of videos like this. I make these videos each and every week, and I'm able to do so thanks to the wonderful support of people on Patreon. So if you get a lot of value out of these videos I make and want to help me keep making them, the best way you can do that is by pledging a couple bucks a month on Patreon. I'd love to have you as the newest member of the Blackmagic Craft Fellowship. That's it for this week, guys. Thanks for watching. Cheers and happy crafting.